Hey there, class. Mr. Pusky here. Hope you're having a good day so far. We're continuing with, this is kind of an individual lesson, but it's basically the factoring process. So this is going to be using our entire factor flow chart, which you should have access to. I probably gave that to you in class, and it should be posted online for you as well. And so we're going to be kind of going through, I mix these problems around randomly so that you would, get some practice knowing how to use the factoring flow chart, which is very important. It makes the process very easy because the regular process is pretty challenging to know how to do, okay? So let's go through some examples. We have 10 plus 5r. All right, what's the first thing we look for on our factoring flow chart? We look for a GCF. Is there a GCF that goes into 10 and 5r? We can pull out a 5. So we pull out a 5, we're going to have 10 divided by 5 is 2. 5r divided by 5 is r. And I guess what we should be doing here, actually, you're not going to see this here, but we should be doing square brackets because we don't know if what's inside the brackets is going to be simplified or not. Next thing we have is 2 plus r. How many terms is that? That's 2 terms. Is it a difference of squares? Is 2 and r, are those perfect squares or no? They are not. So our final answer is just going to be, you can stop right there, 5 times 2 plus r. All right, sounds good. Next one, number 2, we have 7v squared minus 18v minus 40. All right, is there a greatest common factor that goes into 7v squared, negative 18v, and negative 40? There is not. So we move on to the next thing. We check how many terms there are. How many terms are here? We have 3 terms. Is it a perfect square trinomial? Well, it is not because 7 and 40 are not perfect squares, so we can stop there. So we move on to either general factoring or trial and error. Which one are we going to use? Well, it's not going to be general factoring because we don't have a 1v squared or just v squared. We have 7v squared. Okay, so we need to go ahead and we're going to be doing the smiley face method or trial and error method. So we'll do this. What are the factors of 7v squared? That is 7v times v. So that's going to go in the first one here. It's the only factors of 7v squared. What multiplies to 40? Well, I got 1 times 40. What else do I have? 2 times 20. 4 times 10. 5 times 8. And those are all the different factors here. Okay. Why don't you pause the video and see if you can guess what the correct factorization is going to be for this. All right, we should have gotten plus 10 right here, 7v plus 10, and v minus 4, because 10 times v is 10v, and 7v times negative 4 is negative 28v, which equals negative 18v, which is what we want. So our answer for this one is going to be 7v plus 10 times v minus 4. And there's our answer. All right. Move on to number 3. So we have 40x to the third minus 8x squared minus 5x plus 1. First things first, is there a greatest common factor, or GCF, that goes in all these numbers and variables? No. How many terms do we have here? We have 4 terms. So this is going to be factoring by grouping. So we're going to group it. We're going to check our signs. We got positive and negative. We got negative and positive. All right, now we need to go ahead and do factoring by grouping. See if you can go ahead and do this one from here on your own. See how you do. All right, what's the GCF for the first 2? Well, it's going to be 8x squared times, then we got to divide everything by 8x squared, the first 2, so it's going to be 5x minus 1. All right, what can we pull out of negative 5x plus 1? We can pull out a negative 1, right? Because there's no GCF, we can always pull out a 1. We're going to pull out a negative because these signs do not match. Okay, so we're going to pull out a negative. It's going to change the signs to 5x minus 1, which is what we want. And we're going to get 5x minus 1 times 8x squared minus 1. And there's our answer. All right, number 4, we have 25a squared minus 1. Is there a GCF? No. How many terms do we have here? We got 2 terms. Is it a difference of squares? Do we have 2 perfect squares with a minus sign between them? Well, let's check. What's the square root of 25a squared? That is 5a. What's the square root of 1? That is 1. And we do have a minus sign between them, so it's going to factor 2. How does that factor? Well, it's going to be plus and minus. We're going to put 5a and 5a. We're going to put 1 and 1, then we're going to put a plus and minus between them, and it's going to factor like this. All right, sounds good. Moving on. Number 5. Okay, we have 4p squared minus 12p plus 9. All right, is there a GCF that goes in all these numbers and variables? No GCF. How many terms do we have here? We have 3 terms. Is it a perfect square trinomial? Well, we got to check that. We need 2 perfect squares in the front and back. So is 4p squared perfect square? What's the square root of 4p squared? That is 2p. What's the square root of 9? That is 3. And then the middle should be double those two multiplied together. What's 2p times 3? That's 6p. And what's double 6p? Is that 12p? It is. So it's going to factor to look like something like this. And then we're going to take this negative, it's going to go in the middle. And we're going to do square root of 4p squared, which is 2p, square root of 3, and then put this sign in the middle, which is negative. So we get the quantity of 2p minus 3 all squared. All right, number 6, we have x squared plus 12x plus 27. GCF? No. How many terms? 3 terms. Is it a perfect square trinomial? Well, it is not, because 27 is not a perfect square. So it's not a perfect square trinomial. Is it going to be general factoring or the smiley face or trial and error method? It's going to be general factoring, which is going to be our diamond factoring. So we're going to put 27 on top, 12 on the bottom. See if you can finish this one off from here. See how you do. All right, what numbers multiply to 27 and add to 12? We're going to have 9 and 3. So it's going to factor 2 x plus 9 times x plus 3. And there we go. All right, now we're going a step further here. We have to solve each equation by factoring. So this one we're going to first make sure it's equal to 0, and then we're going to factor, and then we're going to set each part equal to 0 like we were doing before in like 10.4, I believe. Okay? All right, let's check first here. First things first, number 7, is it equal to 0 right now? It is not. So how do we make it equal to 0? We're going to add 6 to both sides. So we're going to get n squared plus 7n. 6 plus 6 is 12 plus 12 equals 0. So now we're going to go back to our factor flow chart and try to factor the left-hand side. So how many is there a GCF for n squared, 7n, and 12? No. Is there a, let's see here. How many terms do we have? 3 terms. Is it a perfect square trinomial? It is not, because of this 12 here. Is it general factoring or trial and error? It is general factoring, because we have just a 1n squared right here. We have 1n squared. So we're going to put 12 on top. We're going to put 7 on the bottom. What numbers multiply to 12 and add to 7? 4 and 3. All right, so this is going to factor 2 n plus 4 times n plus 3 equals 0. Why don't you see if you can solve this from here now. See how you do. All right, so we have n plus 4. We set each part equal to 0 now. N plus 4 equals 0, or n plus 3 equals 0. So n's going to equal what two numbers? Negative 4, or n's going to equal negative 3. And there's our answer. All right, number 8. Why don't you see if you can do number 8 on your own. See how you do. All right, 5v squared plus 3v minus 14 equals 0. First things first, is it equal to 0 right now? It is. Do we have a GCF that goes into the left-hand side? No GCF. How many terms do we have here? We have 3 terms. Is it a perfect square trinomial? No, because we have 5 and 14 are not perfect squares. So is it general factoring or trial and error? It is trial and error, because we have 5v squared. So we're going to find the factors of 5v squared and the factors of 14. So we have 5v times v. Factors of 14 are 1 times 14, or 2 times 7. Go away button. Don't like you here. Good. All right, so we're going to do, we need 5v and v. See if you can figure out what's going to go in the middle here. All right, if you did this right, you should have gotten minus 7 and plus 2, because that would be negative 7v, and this would have been 10v, which equals 3v. So we're going to set this equal to 0. So we're going to do 5v minus 7 equals 0, or v plus 2 equals 0. Now we solve for v by adding 7, divide by 5, v equals 7/5, or over here subtract 2, or v equals negative 2. All right, we got 2 more examples here. Let's try them. Number 9, x squared minus 15x plus 56 equals 0. Is there a GCF? All right, first things first, is it equal to 0? It is equal to 0. Is there a GCF? No GCF. Nothing goes into all those numbers there. How many terms do we have here? We have 3 terms. Is it a perfect square trinomial? It is not because of 56. Now, is it general factoring or trial and error? It is general factoring because we have 1x squared and not like 2x squared or something like that. So we're going to put 56 on top, negative 15 on the bottom. What numbers multiply to 56 and add to negative 15? Why don't you guys see if you can finish this problem from here? All right, should be negative 7 and negative 8. So it's going to be x minus 7 times x minus 8 equals 0. Set each part equal to 0 now. Whoops. X minus 7 equals 0, or x minus 8 equals 0. So x is going to equal, add 7 to both sides, we're going to get 7, or x equals 8. And there's our answer. All right, number 10. All right, is it equal to 2r squared plus minus 16r plus 24 equals 0? Is it equal to 0 right now? Yes. Is there a GCF? The answer is yes, there is a GCF. I got to pull that out first. What number goes into all those numbers there? So we're going to do 2 and do square brackets. Now we're going to divide everything by 2. So we're going to have r squared minus 8r plus 12 equals 0. All right. So now we have this. Now we look inside in the brackets there. We pull out a GCF. How many terms do we have there? We have 3 terms. Is it a perfect square trinomial? It is not because of this 12. So we're going to do general factoring or trial and error, or smiley face method. We're doing general factoring because we have 1r squared. So we're going to put 12 on top, negative 8 on the bottom. Why don't you see if you can finish this one off from here. Go ahead and see how you do. Apologize for that as my speaker. All right, so we have what numbers multiply to 12 and add to negative 8? Those are going to be negative 6 and negative 2. So we're going to have 2 parentheses r minus 6 times r minus 2 equals 0. Now, do we need to set the 2 equal to 0 or just the r minus 6 and r minus 2? We do not need to set 2 equal to 0 because that wouldn't really make sense, would it? So we're going to set each of these equal to 0. We have r equals 6 or r equals 2. And there's our answer. All right, and that is all I have for you today. Hopefully you get the process of using your factor flowchart because it is very important. If you have questions, make sure you bring them to class. And thank you for watching. Have a great day, and we will talk soon.